Well, hello and welcome to another video. This is a little bit of a plan B, like I say. I had other ideas in mind, but the day, the weather, the East Lancashire weather wasn't that favourable. So there's always a plan B, but it was a good plan B. And we're back in one of our favourite places here at Rooley Moor Road. The intention was to go to Rooley Moor Road anyway, but on the Stagsted side. So you can see the area we are. We'll zoom into the area we're going to actually look at. I did want to look at Old Sink today, but sometimes you've just got to grab the bull by the horns, and we're going to look at some old shafts on Rooley Moor Road from our, if you remember our first video on the Cotton Road, which was just maybe a couple of months ago. We were in this area here where the Smallshire Dam is, and that's where the Rooley Moor colliery was round about 1800, and we were looking at a little bit of a dispute between the freeholders and the tenants or the lessees. Well, today we've got another bit of a dispute which I'm not going to politically get involved in, but I'm going to let people know about what the proposals of this area are and securing the history. So like I said, this is the area we were a couple of months ago, the bottom end of Rooley Moor Road on Rochdale, the Cotton Famine Road at Catley Lane Head. And where we're going to go today, we're going to walk up the road and we're going to explore some old shafts, partly to do with that video, where the pit went back to perhaps the 1740s and 1750s. You can see on Google Earth these shafts here. There's a lot more of them, and we need to get the drone up and talk about them on a far better day. The next stage of development of Rooley Moor Colliery was here where they sunk a shaft, and that is on the 1840s map, which we will show, the first edition Ordnance Survey. Then we're going to make our way up Rooley Moor Road in the fog and the clag to this here. Now this was a drift mine from about 1858, Rooley Moor Breast Eye basically. And also running in conjunction with that at the same time, you can see a track coming off through Catstone's quarries and all that to this area, which is Greenland, and that was higher Greenland drift. Now the old Greenland pit we have very little information about, and the old Greenland pit was situated down here in the sandrock. Let's have a look. There we've got Snipe Barn, and we've got the incline, the stone incline, coming up from Broadley up towards the Bagding quarries, and the road goes off across here, and you can still see an area where the old Greenland pit was, and there's a trig point where the shaft was. Now that was quite deep and it was down to the Sandrock mine, but we know nothing at all about it. But there was a later Greenland pit, and that was situated in this area here. Interestingly, it was tried again in the 1950s thereabouts, and the Greenland and the Rooley Moor drift there worked in conjunction at the same time, but there's a fault between them. And also at the same time, the old sink, which was owned by Lomax's, was being worked. Anyway, we'll get back to that. So we're going to walk up Rooley Moor Road, have a look at this. We didn't get across to Greenland because of the fog and the clag and what have you. So let's just have a look at this area here. It's a slightly different view, but here we are. You can see the metal track going off Rooley Moor Road, and the drift goes in. You can see where the drift goes in, and basically it worked up this area. The Greenland drift was up here. There's a fault between them. This was its working area, but this drift worked along and it came out to daylight again. They had another drift in up at Ready Shore, up in this area on just off the Naden Head Farm Lane. Here we are. Here's the old Naden Head Road and Ready Shore, and when you go up there you can still see where the drifts were. There were 2 or 3, and they came back here in 1901, and they ran a drift for about 4 years. We're not going to talk about that today, but there was an awful accident there where 2 men were tragically killed, and it is a tragedy as well. So that was the area that was worked by the Rooley Moor Breast Eye, as it calls on the plans. And it's easy to make out as you walk up the road. The cobbles sort of end and then they start again, and you'll see this little metal track going off. So from there, and investigating some of these shafts here, which we do, we have a good look at them. We walk all the way up Rooley Moor Road in the mud and, well, not the mud, in the fog and the clag, till we get to this area here. And it's this, the Moorcock, where the old pub was. We have a good, well, we stop there for 2 or 3 minutes and have a look. And then we make our way up finally to Ding Road End. I did want to get up onto Hammer Hill or Hammer Hill, however you pronounce it, but it wasn't the day. So that basically is what we're looking at today.
Well, today is definitely a plan B. As you can see, or to be more precise, as you can't see, I intended to come down to Stacky today, Staxted, and do part 2 of the series on the Cotton Road coal industry, Cotton Famine Road, Rooley Moor Road. But as you can see, the weather is horrendous. I'd planned to go up Old Sink, and it's just not the day. It'd spoil it if that was the bit that we had on Old Sink just up there. So what I thought I'd do, you probably can't tell, but I am on Rooley Moor Road, but at the Rockstool side, just above Lane Head. And what I thought I would do is look for some things that I can't find, or haven't found yet. When we got that old plan that we did the first video on, it showed a lot of old ancient shafts off towards Greenland side. So I thought I'd have a look for those and see where another part of the Rooley Moor colliery is. High Greenland. I don't hold much hope for that today, but there's also another drift that I didn't realise about off Rooley Moor Road. So this video mightn't actually get released. It depends on what I come up with today. But anyway, that's what we're kind of doing. Most of the history I have got so far, which is rather thin on the ground, a lot of it we've got out of the court case between Dearden's and Lee's. The court case up at Freeholds, where Dearden claimed that they'd been pinching his coal in the 1860s and 70s. That's a massive story, but we've got a lot of information from there, and the only other information we've picked up is from newspaper articles, which can't always be relied on, and that plan that we kind of came across, you know, that showed this old dispute from the early 1800s. And what that plan showed, and tying it in with the stuff we got from the Dearden and Lee's case, is all these old shafts at the side of Rooley Moor. Behind me there, that's Rooley Moor Road. It's an awful day, isn't it? And the path going down, the road going down, goes down to the Rooley Moor Road colliery you can see on the 1844 first edition map. But it shows all these shafts in this field going down towards Greenland and the Whimsy coal pit. So the idea would be to get Desi up in the air. Not a chance today, and even if the rain stopped, there's too much mist, and we can plot all these shafts because they're all named on that old plan: water shaft, new shaft, and basket pit and that. And this behind me is one of them actually. I don't know if you can see it very well. I just spied it off the road. There you can just see the mound around it, and it's in where the rushes are. But if we look here, the moles have been digging, and we've got all the coal that the kind of moles or whatever else has been digging up. Moles, rats, anything. So this is one of the pits, and these really must, from what we know, date back to the late 1700s, the 1750s to the 1700s. So yeah, fantastic piece of history that I didn't really realise about before. Here we are, you've got another one. We're not so far away. You won't be able to see it in this mist. But this is quite a lot better preserved. I mean, it's filled in, don't get me wrong. You can see where on here possibly they had maybe the big cabin and the coal was landed up here. Well, some of them are called basket pits. So does that mean they just had like a windlass with a basket? And one over the other side is actually called Whimsy Pit. So did they have horse gins on as well? I dare say the only infrastructure they'd have would be maybe as a little cabin, really. And the mist and the fog gives it rather an eerie feeling, especially with the pylons sort of stretching out up there, doesn't it? But for the most part, especially in the winter months, this is what it would have been like, stood out here working on the pit bank. And from my estimation, it's a lot of the blooming summer months. Every time I seem to come up here, it's lousy weather. We'll just have I can just spy another one from here. I'm going to have a look at that, and then we're going to have a look further up Rooley Moor Road and try and find where one of the drift entrances was from round about the late 1850s going up towards the Cotton Famine. Spied something interesting. That's the shaft where we've just been. And it could be something and nothing. It could just be a natural feature. But from near here, look, can you see this channel going down? Where the rushes are just a little bit darker. It's like there's been maybe a watercourse down here at some point. Well, there has. You can see the water there. But is this anything to do with the old pits? It mightn't be. But then again, it might. You can see it going down there. It could even just be a field drain, I know. But it's a bit of a coincidence. Here we've got another one of them. I said we'd just look at another one. This looks quite pretty, how the water droplets have caught in the grass. But I think these, I know, yeah, I love the old stuff. Somebody commented on the last video that they liked all the really ancient mining, and I do. I mean, I love all the mining, don't get me wrong. And I know a lot of people maybe just want to know where the granddad worked, or pits that they can sort of remember, you know, for the old pitmen themselves. But when I see stuff like this, and the stuff over like Broadhead Moor in Burnley, it's a bit like digging up pharaohs. It's a generation before. These were I'm not saying the pioneers, and they certainly weren't the beginning. They were maybe about 500 years in, but it's before our time. See, this is the pit top area where they'd have landed the coal, and whatever they used to wind would have been on here. And there, you see, you can see that trench again, that watercourse. Is it well, it's some form of watercourse. And at least one of the pits was known as the water pit. You can, they're all the names are marked on. And as I think I've already mentioned, the plans are, or they're just submitting the plans now to make this the biggest wind farm in England, and it's going to stretch all the way across the Bramwood Moor, down into Whitworth and across Countmoor. And it's no surprise really, because I remember reading the Scoutmoor wind farm, a lot of the documents on that, and they've got all the plans on of these pits here and on the top of Bramwood. Now why would they have done that and assessed that ground? Obviously because they had plans then to do it. And this is a history channel. It's not a political platform, and I'm not going to use it. Obviously I've got my own views, but what I think is important is that whether the plans get passed, people are going to protest, people are going to welcome it with open arms. All I'm interested in is getting all this recorded, all the industrial archaeology and all the other archaeology, as Stu Mendelsohn will tell you, which is all overlooked. This is the problem. If this moor had been down south, all the hard work would have been done. There's burial sites up here. When you listen to Stu, there's possibly Viking meeting places up here, barrows, all sorts, and you know, they're in threat. They really are in threat. And what the company says is that this is an ideal spot because it's been blighted by quarrying and mining. Now that's gaslighting, that's explosive language, and we need to reclaim that language. This is industrial archaeology. It's certainly not blighted. It's a windswept moorland, for goodness sake. Big peat hags everywhere, and the remains of the mines and quarries that are here are interesting, and they're important. That's not to say you don't do what you're going to do, but let's preserve what we can. And also, when you start talking to people like Stu Mendelsohn, there's things far more ancient than mining and quarrying here. There's Viking things, possibly a Viking meeting place up at Ding. there's burial grounds and all sorts of things up here. If this place had been down south, you'd have had Tony Robinson and Time Team crawling all over it for donkey's years. But it isn't down south, and neither are the wind farms. But anyway, I've got friends on both sides of the camp. Like I said, it's not a platform. But to say that these are blights on the landscape, as far as I'm concerned, is like saying, well, that Egypt's ruined, didn't it? You know what I mean? All those pyramids and sphinx are a right blight on the desert, aren't they? Of course they are.
So as we come back to the moorcock and we zoom out, what do we see? Well, yeah, it looks like something from Dorset, doesn't it? It's this area here. This is a massive Scoutmore wind farm, and the proposal is to build the biggest wind farm in England on the rest of this moor. It's been wanted for years. Well, they've wanted it for years. It got stopped by protests and one thing and another, but now they're coming back. We're going to talk about it, and as I say, my concern is to preserve the history, because there's some fantastic history around here that goes back, yeah, to prehistoric times. So let's have a look at the proposal. What you can see here now is the Scoutmore wind farm that you can see for a million miles as you're coming into the area, all across Scoutmore on these roads. Not just across Scoutmore, it also goes across Knoll Hill, which is here. Just hang on a minute. I've altered the angle to the 2D view. This is Knoll Hill. You can't miss it. It sticks up like a fireman's helmet. This is Ashworth Reservoir. This is the main road, or Outbets as we call it, and Knoll Hill. Now then, can you see this feature? This is known as Man Road Ditch, and it is prehistoric. What its reason was, we don't know yet. But look at what they went and done. They went and put their main roads, their access roads, right through the Man Road Ditch. And that's what I'm frightened of them doing now, is just ruin things that haven't yet been explored. So let's see the area that the new wind farm is going to cover. Here we are. This is off their website, so I claim fair usage. Here's the Scoutmore wind farm, and the proposal that they have is to now fill this area. You can see it's massive. We're going across the Boarsgreave, all across the Whitworth, and right across Rooley Moor Road there. 21 turbines up to a height of 180 metres. They say that they're going to keep them at least a kilometre away from people's houses. And there's the common land that's going to be sort of affected. I can't blow it up any more than what it is, but you can see it's a massive area. And like I say, my concern is the history that is there, as we will discuss as we go through the video.
And this is a part of the pit I never knew about until recently. We've just, where you saw us come off the track there, Rooley Moor, off Rooley Moor Road, we're here, and this is Rooley Moor Road Drift, I think it's called. There's not much of it left, but there's just this plateau, and we can see, not in this weather very good, where the drift went in, and it looks like this was running in the late 1850s and then into the 1860s, along with Greenland, higher Greenland drift, and the old sink that Lomax is sunk after the Cotton Famine, right? So a lot of this maybe all planned out before the Cotton Famine, but certainly worked afterwards, which is why I find Rooley Moor Road paving so interesting. On a better day, we'll get a better aerial shot of this, but I didn't know it existed. I think this is kind of top of pike. You can see where the drift goes in. Yeah, that's a line of it, up those rushes there. And it runs in line with the Greenland workings, but there's a fault between the two. And it works up as far as, if you follow the hill round towards Ready Shore, and there's drifts on the old Naden Head Road, and it comes out there. There was a drift out there, and then later in 1901 they went back and tried to develop those drifts, and there was a tragic accident there. 2 guys got killed. It really was tragic. We'll talk about that when we do the video proper. But anyway, like I said, I'd never really noticed this sort of place before, but you can certainly see it as you come up Rooley Moor Road. You'll see, we'll retrace our steps there, and you can see where the road branches off. Where we are, we've just come up to where the cobbles kind of start again here, and straight away they're going up. You can't see the hill there because of the mist. You see the track going off, and you can't moan about the motorbikes if you're going to get a wind farm up here, can you? You see where the track goes off, you can still see a bit of it metalled. The original workings seem to be those that we've seen near the pylons and on Hunger Hill. You can see on that really old plan all the old shafts shown on Hunger Hill into the lower mountain mine. Obviously today's not a day to go up there. This was the lower mountain, and what you can see on the 1844 first edition map is down there. I was going to have a wander down, but there's a load of horses there and they generally don't like dogs, do they? That's for another day. That was a shaft mine, and then it's still a bit of a mystery. A lot of the Rooley Moor pit is a mystery. Yeah, apart from what we've got out of the newspapers, the coal board hardly, well, British Coal Authority hardly have any plans. We've been lucky to get hold of one or two. There might be something in Rochdale Local Studies, I believe, on the Dearden archive, because these were owned, obviously it's Dearden's land, formerly obviously Byron's, and now then it was Dearden's, and most the Deardens and the Lomaxes were hand in hand. The Lomaxes were the Dearden's land agents, and they run most of the pits up here. I'd love to be able to find their archive, and I think there is some stuff in the Rochdale Local Studies. But anyway, like I said, we're going to turn this into the biggest wind farm. Hopefully they're going to leave the road alone. This should be a national, like a scheduled ancient monument really, this road. Like I said on the first video, it's far older than, you know, the Cotton Famine. It could date back to 2,000 years even more. But what I'm saying to the people who are interested in local history is now is the time to document everything up here. However long we've got before they start building the turbines, if it gets past, yeah, is a good time to get everything documented and people to work together really. You know, no egos, no I'm researching this, I'm researching that, and you're not having any of my information. You know, let's just get it all done. You know, I'm sure Stuart is going to be really interested in doing stuff like that, and he can get other people on board. But that's certainly what me and one or two others are interested in doing, is getting as much documented and recorded of this moor while it's still unspoilt as we possibly can. I've just noticed this great big stone at the side of the road, side of that homemade cairn there. Can you see that on? What does it say? There's definitely a 6 and there's definitely a slot cut above it. I wonder what that's to do with. We're coming up to now what is one of the most famous places on the Rooley Moor Road. It's the site of the old Moorcock Inn. Now originally this place was known as Shore Moor, and the Moorcock is shown on all maps as Rowley's house. R-O-W-L-E-Y, Rowley. That is where Rooley Moor comes from. It took the name of this place, and it was supposed to be, the guy was supposed to be called Rowley that lived here. It's infamous. It was a place that people came to stay for days because they were that drunk they couldn't get home, and 1 or 2 people died trying to get home. Not much left now, is there? And the reason is it used to shut for the winter. I think Richard Holt's relative had it. I'm sure Richard said one of his relatives had it. Pardon me. And they were doing artillery practice up here. And they blew it to bits, didn't they? And he came back in the summer, spring to reopen, and they're now but a pile of stones. So this is the Moorcock. And there's a road that branches off here. You cannot see it today, which ends up, it's just a grass track, but you can see it on the old maps. And it goes down to Woodhouse Lane. And that was a really important highway back in the day. The Moorcock's a video all on its own. There's lots of stories to do about it. I am persevering with this. You think about it, this was normal weather this is just normal weather, not back in the day. And people who worked in the quarries up here and the pits up here would have walked up and back in this weather. Those in the quarries would have worked outside in this and far worse. It was a main road. So the carters bringing stuff over, people just using it as a road. This is what they'd be travelling in. And there was plans in 1823, actually, to turnpike it and join up with Cowp and bring the road right, well, this road was already here, but to turnpike it, so it went down towards Cowp, then to Boarsgreave and onto the turnpike there. But obviously they put the main road then through the Thrush, through the glen in Waterfoot. I think this is maybe as far as I'm going to come today. Every time I just turn round to look at something, Morgan thinks, oh goody gumdrops, we're going home. Well, I've got as far, I'll show you behind me, as the Ding Quarry Road End. Now it's that name Ding. I said we're looking at ancient monuments and things and trying to unfathom the past, which is Stu Mendelssohn's thing really. It's out of my league. But Stu, he gave a really interesting talk the other week at Whitworth Library. And like if you look on the first video I did of the Cotton Famine Road, talk about a little bit of the history and how Rochdale is an old place. Like Stu says, it was a wapentake. The first, they had a market here in the 1200s. It wasn't just an out of the way place, wasn't Rochdale? It was important. It was on a main trade route from Chester through to York, according to Stu. Now, like I said, this is Ding Quarry Road. There was a Ding house. Ding, Stu's thinking, is near like a word thing. The Vikings and that, the Norsemen, they had a thing for them was a meeting place. A meeting place that was in neutral ground if they were discussing important things, so nobody was on home territory. And it's Stu's thought that the name Ding comes from that Viking thing. And where we were, down at the Moorcock, down below them, obviously it's pointless looking on a day like this, but there's really old fields, old plough systems. And when I say old, I mean old. I don't mean back to the 1500s. We're going way, way back. I'm not going to say prehistoric. Stu will tell you better. And at Naden Head, the old farmstead down there, is a possible location. If it was a Viking thing, that is where it was. It was a very significant farm, was Naden Head, quite sizable as well. And what I sort of had in mind in doing as well was going this way, further up the road onto Hamer Hill or Hammer Hill. I'm not sure the best way to pronounce it, but there's old pits up there, and I don't mean coal pits. I mean pits that we don't know what on earth they're for. It's off the coal measures, if you will. There is coal under, but it's a long way. It's a sand rock mine, so they're certainly not to that. Nobody knows anything about what their origin is. But again, that's going to be a day, I think, when we get Des up, our Desi. That's not going to happen today. The interesting thing is I can hear voices all down on Naden Head Valley there, in the Naden Valley. It's weird on a day like this. But if we walked across here into Ding Quarry, we will get across to the existing wind farm in Scout Moor. This is like the level of it, if you know what I mean. And I'm going to make my way back, and if I find anything worth talking about, we'll talk. I got sidetracked coming back, looking at this on the bank, just at the side of the road. There you've got this burnt stuff here. It's definitely all burnt. Below, that is coal. There's coal in that. It's interesting, that, isn't it? Is it natural or has it just been dumped? Has the coal been on fire with a sweeling at some point? Who knows, eh? Yeah, it doesn't look like it. Yeah, is it dumped? Is it not dumped? Is it natural? Has it naturally been on fire at some point? Interesting, eh? There you can see it off the road. We're down near the old shafts again where we set off early doors. Well, that sort of concludes our walk up here today. I'm sorry I didn't manage to get the video done I wanted to do. I have got something behind me to show you. But I've come 100 miles and I put the day aside. I was working yesterday. It's just the way it is, isn't it? I've still enjoyed the walk. But I'll show you this behind us. Can you see there? The coal crops out. We're on the road down towards, oh, sort of like Prickshire really. Prickshire's for just down there. That's great to see, isn't it? We've got one of the old shafts just up there as well. I don't know what seam that is cropping out. I don't think it's the mountain mine. It could be, but why would it? Yeah, I can't see the shafts being that deep really, if that was the case. I don't think it's the mountain mine, I think it's somewhere else. We'll have a look on the geological survey. And like I said, the idea was just to put the word out there that this new wind farm's going up. I'm not pro and I'm not against. All I'm for is saving what we can save industrial archaeology wise and other archaeology wise as well. You know, I might be really into me industrial archaeology, but there's far more. So like I said, anybody that's really interested and has something to contribute into the history around here, most of the videos I do, a lot of the ideas, it comes from other people, the things that they tell us, and sometimes it comes from the strangest of places. Part of some of the story we're going to do on Rooley Moor, which I hope to do in the next few months, a lad out in Ohio has given me loads and loads of information, and we've just got another story given us yesterday. All right, not on Rooley Moor. So whatever you've got, please contribute. You know, this channel is made up from contributions from all over, and hopefully we can get a really good history put together of this moor in the next couple of years. Yeah. So what I'm going to finish off with really is a bit of film I did a couple of weeks ago when it was a nice summer's evening and I've been somewhere else, and I called off at Norden on the way home to look in Jubilee Park at the monument that's been laid there for the three boys that got killed in the Clapgate pit disaster of 1838 where they drowned. And Dave put so much into that. So I'm going to finish off with that, and it does tie in a little bit to the story of the wind farm in a way, with renewable energies and iron and steel production, and where these things are now coming from. They're coming from abroad. We're going to put goodness knows how many tons of iron and steel up on this moor. It ain't coming from England, it's coming from somewhere else. So yeah, I'm not getting involved in the argument pro or against. I'm just full of getting the history done. So we'll leave the coal outcrop behind, and it's like I said, it's a shame that I didn't do what I wanted, because I'm really looking forward to doing the old sink video. It's one of my favourite. It's a funny thing, isn't it? Yeah, I've always been really intrigued by that area. So anyway, I hope you enjoy this last bit, what we're going to tag on the end, and thanks for watching. This is for those of you who live down south or in other countries. This is what East Lancashire's like a lot of the time. Well, we're not even in East Lancashire anymore, are we? I think we're in South Manchester now, I think. No, it can't be South Manchester, can we? North Manchester, South Lancashire. Yeah, it's still East Lancashire to me. Anyway, enjoy this little bit up at Norden on a more sunny evening. And if you haven't watched the video on the Norden boys, I'll leave a card up at the end for you to get onto it. Anyway, ta-ra for now. Well, I regret to say this is the first time I've actually walked up to see the stone here. Obviously I don't get to Norden that much, but this is a stone in memory to the three lads that got killed in the Black Pitch Colliery on the 4th of July 1838. And This stone is here thanks to Dave and all the work he did, all the raising awareness, getting the stone donated, engraved and put here in Jubilee Park in Norden. It'll be at least 2 years ago now Dave did all that. What can you say? It's in a park, which is lovely, because that's where children this age should be playing. Samuel Dearden, age 9, Abraham Grinrod, 10, Abraham Shepherd, aged 11. There is no more coal mining in this country, hardly at all now, is there? Because we don't do that, it's bad for the environment. But they still burn coal, they still use it, it just comes in from abroad, from countries where there's lads and girls this age still involved in the industry. So it's just like the Victorian times, you can't see it. Kids are up chimneys, but not in my backyard, but it's still happening. Whereas the kids should be in a park. Maybe people should think of the wider issues at times. Better with grown men mining coal, trained men, and they bring home wages to provide for kids this age, don't they? People keep jobs, and they put money into the community. The Black Pits disaster obviously was a bit forgotten Rochdale history, Norden history. It goes back to 1838. And the interesting thing is these three lads have been more or less forgotten about until we uncovered the history of them. And it happened on the same day as the Husker Pit disaster. Hopefully you've seen our video on YouTube, Come Suffer Little Children. And yeah, we did that a few years ago now, and hopefully we've come on a little bit in our presentation. But it's such an important story. There was 26 killed in Yorkshire at the Husker Pit, and these three killed here in Rochdale, well near Rochdale at Norden. Well, you think, that's a long way away, Clive, how can they be connected? Well, because it was a flood, it was a storm, and that storm went across Rochdale, right across East Lancashire and across towards Barnsley, and affected quite a lot of the north of England with massive floods. It's a big story, but history sometimes just gets localised. But thankfully, thanks to Dave, this is here for everybody to see, and those lads now are remembered.